We just got a huge update on what's coming next for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and this may come as a shock, but they're doing it. They're finally removing this. Earlier today was a dev stream where Warhorse shared major details on not only the next major update, which was described as the biggest update that this game will ever get, yet this update's secretly been in development for about 5 months now, but also during the stream we got some gameplay of some of the new features that will be coming in this update and even in some future updates, but also a ton of details around what else is coming to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, some of the major fixes, balance changes, and even details on some of the DLCs that are dropping later this year. But that wasn't all. Separately, Destin just interviewed Sir Toby, where we get some further insight into what's next for this studio. Questions finally being answered around Kingdom Come Deliverance 3, and even a potential new IP from Warhorse. But the next update that is coming to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will be official mod tools, which are currently slated to release in just under 2 weeks on Tuesday, March 11th, at least according to this dev stream earlier today. This is going to be a dual release. The official mod tools themselves will drop on this day, but at the same time, we're also going to be getting some Steam Workshop support. So the actual process of downloading mods for this game should be fairly seamless on Steam. Although sadly, during this dev stream, they did confirm that console mods are currently not planned or coming to this game, and this honestly is a pretty big deal. If you are already familiar with the modding in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, the devs here described how this time around the modding possibilities will be even greater. Just about all of the internally used tools to develop Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 are being made public and will be in the hands of modders. And they even describe putting in a bit of extra work into the tools themselves and a lot of the documentation around all of this. It very much so seems like Warhorse wants modding to prosper with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and it's one of the big reasons that these modding tools are coming so quickly after release, really just a month or so after. But there is seemingly going to be one big downside with these modding tools. Reportedly, they're quite hard to use. So while things like custom quests will technically be possible with these tools, the devs during the stream describe how this will likely take a while to actually implement just because it's going to take some time for mod authors to actually learn and get used to using these things. But if you are interested, get subscribed. I am planning to fully cover a lot of the Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 mods that are releasing over the course of 2025. And if anything, the mods update is really just going to be the start of a flood of new content coming to this game. Because just a week or so after this mods update does drop, patch 1.2 will also be dropping. This is going to include over 1,000 fixes for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and the first of the free DLCs, which is really more of just a new feature with the barber. And to make this clear, the way they talked about this during the stream, these are two separate updates just releasing incredibly close to one another. The mods update will seemingly just be the mod tools and Steam Workshop support, but then literally a few days to a week later, at some point in mid-March, a second, more typical game update will be dropping with these 1,000 fixes. And this update actually is a bit of a unique one in that it's been secretly being developed for about 5 months now. You're probably thinking, wait, how? The game only came out about 3 to 4 weeks ago? How has this update been in the works for 5 months? During the stream, the devs basically described how they wanted Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 to be as polished as possible on release. And sadly, fixing bugs can often lead to more bugs or other issues popping up. So they basically broke off into a secondary branch for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and were working on the massive patch 1.2 over there. So a lot of what's included in this update will be bug fixes. They mentioned performance optimization, so some of the worst performing areas of the map will get nice FPS boosts. The very common PS5 headphone issue is being resolved with this one, as well as a bunch of balance changes are coming. Halberds are getting a nice buff, stealth items are rebalanced, although they don't actually mention if it's a nerf or a buff to stealth items. And in what is perhaps the most monumental change of the update overall, the tutorial message saying you don't need to hold W while riding on a horse is being removed with patch 1.2. In its own right, this update should be giant, but it's also going to include the first free DLC with the barber. Barber Fiala will finally have a job, as now you could find new barber locations on both maps in-game. At the barber, for a fee, you can modify both your head hair as well as your facial hair with quite a few options available for each. Many of these being appropriate hairstyles for the time, but also some familiar hairstyles that appeared in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, which also had a barber. And after getting your hair done, Henry will have a new freshly trimmed buff, which will raise your charisma by 2 for a few days. I could have really used this feature a few weeks ago as I was trying to get into a certain wedding, but at least some of the new players will gain access to that one. We're getting these two updates pretty quickly in the next 2 to 3 weeks, but the devs describe that just a month after patch 1.2 and the barber, another update will drop, That'll principally add in the hardcore mode for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which we got a deep preview of during this dev stream. They're doing something really cool with this one. Warhorse already has 100 players privately testing the hardcore mode right now. These are players from the community, not people internally at Warhorse, and that should mean that the hardcore mode will have over a month of additional player feedback from actual people playing this game. And this hardcore mode is really interesting. It's really described as more of an immersion mode. Right as you begin with this one, you'll have to pick at least 3 negative perks. These are basically a fixed debuff for your character that will just make things harder. Technically, you can pick all of these if you want to, but need to at least choose 3 in order to begin playing on a hardcore mode save. Many of these are pretty simple and predictable things. Bad back will give you less carrying capacity, and while harvesting, you can pull your back, giving you another debuff. Heavy-footed leads to you making more noise while walking, but you'll also burn through shoes faster. You can get dirty faster and be smelt from twice as far away, and there's even some more custom stuff in here. Punchable face will make it so travelers on the road are more likely to fight you, and enemies will never give up in combat. The menace perk will make it so brands you receive are permanent, and getting caught after you already have one brand for a serious crime will just lead to your execution. Bashful makes you shy, so you're going to be unable to speak to any of the bathhouse girls, basically locking you out of all of their services, and you won't be able to ask random NPCs for directions, which is one of the core new features of this hardcore mode. Because what seems like it'll be the hardest part of the hardcore mode is navigation. No more quest markers, at least when you're decently far away. Saving now always requires save your snaps, and you can't actually see yourself on the map anymore. You can open the map, you can see where quest locations are on the map, but you won't be able to see where you are in the map. And the map will even reopen wherever you last left it, so it's not like it's going to center around your current location or really give you any clues as to where you're currently located. So what this means is, while playing on the hardcore mode, you're gonna basically have to use environmental clues, looking at these stars, which, yeah, this game does have a North Star, or even just using things like the sun position to determine which way is north and really which way you have to go. One of the new features to make this a lot more approachable with the hardcore mode is asking other NPCs for directions. So just by quickly interacting with an NPC, you could ask where you currently are, and this will place a flag on the map showing that current position, but once you close the map, this flag will be gone. So navigation is going to become a far larger consideration on this mode, which of course doesn't feature fast travel either, so you're going to actually have to ride everywhere. And thankfully they made it so this won't be unbearable. Quest markers don't appear on the compass from afar, but thankfully they still appear on the map, and as you actually get close to certain quest locations, those quest markers will reappear on your compass, so exploration in the medium term isn't unbearable. But it's hardcore, so there will also be a combat component to all of this. The devs mention how the combat difficulty isn't actually that much higher in hardcore mode, but it does sound like certain things are tuned up and down. But overall, your hits on enemies and when enemies hit you will be relatively similar, and the bigger difference with the hardcore mode is a ton of your HUD will just be gone now. You can no longer see which direction your weapon is oriented, your health and stamina bars are gone, although when you run low, those screen effects will still appear. The little rabbit that you could see while sneaking is gone, and honestly, to me, this feels like one of the biggest removals. Not being able to see if an enemy is currently detecting you or looking for you or anything like that is kind of a big thing to not be aware of. Seems like stealth is going to be super difficult on this hardcore mode. The pop-up for timing a perfect block, counter, or dodge is no longer going to be visible, and instead you just basically need to learn and watch NPC behavior, really just studying their animations, so you know when the timing is best. Although you still are able to lock onto enemies at least. So the hardcore mode is going to be less about enemies that are going to suddenly hit you with 10 times more damage, and more, it's going to be that you have far less info available to you at a glance, which in turn will make combat a lot harder. And there will be some new achievements for the game with this hardcore mode release. And that still isn't all. During the stream, we heard some details about future updates and even some of what is being planned for the DLCs. They mentioned that the hardcore mode should be coming out about mid-April, which seems like the release window for the next patch after 1.2, and quite a few things could end up coming with that. Overall, Warhorse made it clear during the stream that they have long-term plans for this game and are actively listening to fan feedback right now to make some changes to the game. But as far as future features that they currently have on their radar, they have ideas around being able to remove more more of the HUD, and it sounds like this is something they'd like to add in the future. So basically being able to play the game with next to zero HUD on. The devs are already looking at Gutenberg balancing. They feel players are getting a bit too rich and strong towards the back half of this game, and they want to tweak this but don't want to overdo it. But they are taking a rather favorable approach towards some of this balancing. As an example, they think swords right now are a bit too strong, but they don't want to just nerf swords, as that feels really bad in your single player RPG. I don't want to get an update and suddenly my build is worse. So instead, what they want to do is raise some of the other weapon categories to match swords to even out the playing field that way. And they're even exploring adding more options to photo mode, which right now in game is fairly basic. The devs are currently collecting internal feedback and taking inspiration from other games from their photo modes. And they're also looking at community feedback to see if an upgraded photo mode is even something worth adding. So if you want to see a better photo mode in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I very much so want to, then make some noise, because it seems like right now is the timing where the devs are paying attention online, and if you make enough noise, we'll probably get a new photo mode as a nice new feature. But what I think a lot of fans are missing is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 already has a 2025 roadmap. This actually came out before the release of the game, and it shows all of these free updates or DLCs that are coming, as well as the paid DLCs. Which, after listening to this dev stream, I really do think this is kind of everything. It doesn't sound like they have any plans for content beyond what's shown on this roadmap. In the first DLC, which should be dropping about 3 months after release, which would put its release date around early May, there's going to be several new quests, and one of the abilities you're going to unlock during this one is to paint your own shield. As you finish some of the quests, you're going to unlock new symbols that you can add to your shield, and apparently some of these are really funny. And to be clear, it's not like this is going to be one of the big features of that DLC per se. They just were asked to share something about that DLC, and this is what they mentioned. And personally, I think that's really cool. I think being able to customize your shield a bit more and inject some personality into how you build out your character is going to be really fun. And if we also get an improved photo mode, I could imagine a really nice synergy here. But this first DLC, which will be paid, will also include some substantial free content with a companion update to the game. And it seems like the major feature that's going to come for free around this time are those horse races, which you could see from this roadmap. We don't get too many details about what exactly the horse races will look like, although it's fairly safe to assume you're going to just run faster than the other horse, although there are going to be some modifiers, as this will also have a mode where you have to hit targets with a crossbow from horseback. The second DLC will come quite a bit later than that. It's named Legacy of the Forge and slated to drop between July and September. This one's being described as the feature-rich DLC. Its main focus is going to be to revitalize a forge in Gutenberg, quite similar to the DLC in the first game where you can build up a town. And while we don't get too many concrete details on what exactly you're going to be doing here, it was just overall described how this one has a lot of new mechanics being implemented into the game, even more than with the first game's DLC with building that town, as well as of course it's going to feature a full-fledged questline to do. So it seems like it'll be one of those cool features where, yeah, you have a ton of quests and a ton of story that will introduce a lot of these new mechanics to you, but then I have to imagine you're going to have many more hours just playing with and really exploring and advancing yourself with those new mechanics. And one of the major complaints around Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 should be addressed by one of these DLCs. Something you see a lot of people complaining about is the lack of church interiors. As of right now, none of the churches in-game are enterable, but during the stream we hear why these were cut and how one monastery is going to be coming. Basically, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has no church interiors because no quests currently take you inside of a church. So the devs describe how this was really a simple business decision to focus on optimizations over church interiors, which, while nice, are otherwise completely unnecessary for this game. But the final DLC, known as Mysteria Ecclesiae, I just took a shot on that one. I have no idea how you're supposed to say that. They mentioned not opening church interiors with this DLC, but there's going to be a big monastery interior that you will be able to explore as we are working to stop the spread of a deadly illness. And you could even find this place in game right now. It's out of bounds of the map, but most of the area that is suspected to be used for this third and final DLC is already implemented in game. We don't know much more about this one, but the release window is October to December 2025. And during the stream, they end off with an interesting note. Warhorse very much so wants everything slated here to come out in 2025 because they want to work on something else in 2026. Everyone at Warhorse Studios right now is working on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but they want everything done by the end of the year to be able to move on to something. And we do get some major insights into why, potentially even where, Warhorse is going next, thanks to a recent interview by Destin. You probably remember Destin from IGN, but just recently left and went independent. His most recent interview is with Sir Toby of Warhorse. This interview will be dropping publicly on Monday, but right now you can find it on the Save State Plus Patreon, which I'll have linked down below if you're interested. It's a great interview. They dive into a ton about the development of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and even a bit about its future, and I'm really just picking out 2 quotes from this one. It's an hour-plus long interview with way more information, because when asked about a potential Kingdom Come Deliverance 3 and really where Warhorse Studios plans to go next, we get some incredibly interesting answers here.
Daniel Vavra said many years ago that he hates to do the same project over and over again, and that many studios are kind of forced when they have a hit that they're kind of forced to do always the same game, and then in like a death circle in a way. We are still in a learning phase. You need to understand that KCD1, when I started in 2014, we were like 30 people or so, and of those 30 people, maybe 10 ever released the game. The game was then released by 110, so you can see like there were 15 pros, let's say, and almost 100 newcomers. Now we have the same situation or a similar situation. So the many, maybe 80%, maybe more of the people who released KCD1 moved to KCD2. But the studio grew to 250 people or so. So again, we have a situation where only half of the studio ever worked on a video game before. The other guys, for the vast majority of Warhorse, it's the first project ever. So I can't tell you if there will be a KCD3. I can tell you that we are really good in RPGs, I think, and that is something where we see ourselves. I can also tell you that many people would generally try to do something else as well. But we will see when and how and if. But we as a studio want to grow further, but you need to keep the crew entertained, right? So now with finishing KCD2, or finished KCD2, now with the DLCs and everything, we need to come up with ideas how to give 250 plus. We want, as I said, want to grow 300, maybe how to get 300 people thing to work on. So we would eventually think of, in the future, work on several projects at once, not only be a one-trick pony. So let's see.
And I do find that response quite telling. Warhorse has a bit of a unique problem in that they release 2 wildly successful games, but still have a relatively inexperienced dev team overall. Daniel Vavra is the studio co-founder, so him saying they don't want to just make the same thing over and over feels very telling. That's somebody that can just make that decision to a degree. But at the same time, that mention of 2 future projects also feels very interesting and quite telling. To me, it really just kind of sounds like they're considering doing Kingdom Come Deliverance 3 in tandem with another new game of some kind. Sir Toby does continue on to speculate which type of game they could potentially be working on in the future, and does eventually conclude that Warhorse is good at historical RPGs, so more historical RPGs in the future do seem very likely, but he also mentions an issue with their region. Warhorse works and lives in Prague. That's how we got these insanely accurate open world comparison shots. They literally live right in this area. But conversely, if let's say their next historical RPG heads to Greece, that could lead to some issues with authenticity, as they're now making a game in a place where they don't actually live. That of course is a problem that many game studios have to deal with, but this one really hasn't so far. But either way, my read on the situation is, over the course of 2025, they're likely going to be making decisions internally about what the studio is going to do next. It really sounds like they just want to finish things off with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 this year, but then almost immediately start working on something. They're going to have a ton of devs they want to deploy somewhere, and it sounds like that'll be 2 projects. Likely some kind of new historical RPG, and then separately, very likely on Kingdom Come Deliverance 3. Or at least that's my guess based off this one interview. But more beyond just games could be on the horizon for this franchise.
There was already with KCD1 some Netflix exec or ex-exec or something like that reached out, bought the license, but then COVID happened, so the movie or series or whatever he wanted to do never happened. But of course, KCD generally, I think, would do great as a series or a movie. But my counter question would be then, because people very often don't know what they want. So, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but do the people want a movie or series, doesn't matter at that point, that is one-to-one KCD, like really the story of Henry just as a series, or do they want something from that world or that universe? So in that case, a regular medieval movie in a way, right, without magic or stuff.
And an incredibly important follow-up is the fact that the Warhorse co-founder, Daniel Vavra, has reportedly always wanted to make a children's movie. So now, of course, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, children's movie, doesn't really make a ton of sense, but a movie or series of some kind does feel even more likely with the success of the second game and really just the direction of Hollywood overall right now. I don't really talk about this much on the channel, but following box office and some of the stats around movies is one of my favorite pastimes. And right now, game adaptations are one of the hottest things in Hollywood. We've really moved past the zeitgeist of superheroes and towards game adaptations. If Netflix was already interested in making some kind of project around Kingdom Come Deliverance after the first game's success, that coupled with the fact that the co-founder already wants to make a movie of some kind, the second game is even more successful than the first game, and the fact that the industry has just organically moved towards this type of content, all of that comes together to make me think it is incredibly likely that there are ongoing talks for some kind of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 movie or series right now. And I have to imagine that's why Toby had such a specific consideration for how it would be made in a retelling or a new story. I wouldn't be shocked if the reason he got so detailed with that response is this is a question or a discussion they're currently dealing with. It wouldn't shock me at all if Warhorse Studios is having internal negotiations with Netflix about making something, and they're trying to decide if they just want to retell the story from the games or tell a completely new story in the same world. But with that in mind, those are some of the updates on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. A lot more is right on the horizon. It feels like this was the revelation that a ton is about to happen around this game, so get subscribed. I'm going to be covering all of this content as it comes out, but otherwise check out this video.
I give up. Your first victory. Maybe.